Welcome to the Authentic Leaders Rising podcast, where high achieving entrepreneurs and leaders come to receive deep, insightful conversations and practical guidance to move from hustle to flow without sacrificing their authentic self and the results. I am your host and Chief Energy Officer, Tammy Cho, a former patient care leader turned international best-selling author, speaker, and face and body analysis expert. Get ready to lead your authenticity, lead your energy, and lead your impact. Hi, everyone. Thank you again for tuning in to the podcast, to the show. I have a special guest, Stanley, here, and we're going to be diving into definitely his experience of the face analysis inner awakening session that I've spoken about recently. And I really wanted to have someone come on to share their experience and to really share from a different perspective what it's all about and what you could expect from something like this. So welcome, Stanley. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you for sure. And I love to, start by just letting you introduce yourself and what you do and, why we got connected here and doing what we're doing. So yeah, please go ahead and jump in.
Well, thank you, Tammy, and it's an honor to be here and doing this, and I'm privileged to experience this. And what I do as a coach, I say that I'm a peak performance coach, and what I mean by that is that I focus on the mind, the body, the physical body, posturally, and also what emotionally, what are we bringing into our body? What are the foods that we're bringing in that give us the energy that we have, and also to take the experiences of our life and understand how they form us to who we are today. And so in alignment with what you're doing and what you've revealed to me, I'm excited to dive into this for your listeners. And I want to say, this is going to be just no bars held back. And I want to be as transparent as I can. So I just want to encourage our listeners that this is for real.
Oh, thank you. Yes, for sure, Stanley. And I think the one thing that really aligns us is that we really care about this truth and authenticity and being real
Yes.
and transparent and yeah, letting go of the rest. So, so yeah, Stanley. So, obviously you participated in receiving one of the inner awakening experiences. And so, going into it, what went through your mind? Because I understand this is a bit of a process, right? So I'm just curious right off the bat, what were you thinking about what it was? What did you expect?
Well, the idea behind the whole concept was how can I know myself even better? Because this is one thing that we tend to look at, especially coaches. We tend to look at to see how we can help other people, and we neglect ourselves. And I don't think that there's a lot of coaches that are exempt from this. We go through these periods where our focus is helping and developing others, and we can put ourselves on the back burner saying, I'll get to that. And then when we have the opportunity like this, we have an opportunity to say yes or no. I'll make time or I'll do it later. And I took you up on the offer. And that's really what I wanted to do. It's about knowing thyself. And the better that you know yourself, the more self-aware that you can become, the more empowered that you can be for your clients or for your employees or your employer.
Yeah, definitely. And it's very true. Sometimes we, go into situations like this with a reason, but a lot of times if we're on this path of personal development, we know that often what's in the way is often ourselves. If we've been on this journey a while and we can't change what we're not aware of. And that is the beauty of face analysis to really tap into what is our own body showing us that we could be aware of and what we're not aware of. And so, yeah, let's definitely dive into this. And so, I'm just curious, what about the face analysis? What surprised you? Like what jumped forth for you as something that I don't know, like shocked you or just surprised you about the whole process? Just curious. Just want to put that in the front.
Well, how many details there are in each portion of the face. And as you shared, the difference in the higher cheekbones and also the recession in my temples, the lines on my ear, the lines coming next to my ear, uh, the nostril size, the formation of my smile or the lack of, the amount of lip exposure that's taken place, the different levels of the eyes, the different positions of the eyes. I mean, I can just dissecting that and having the ability to see that. Now it becomes almost difficult to see people the same way that you saw them before, and you can see more into them. And what I do posturally, when I see people that they look like they're in pain, I know that they're in pain. And it's like, why? And if you were aware of that, would you make that change? And so that was a big eye opener, um, going forward.
Yeah, it really does change our whole relationship to our bodies, right? With coming
Yeah,
from someone who works with the body, it's like
yeah,
seeing it in a different way like this. I'm sure that really lit up a lot of things for you, Stanley. And
yeah.
so I'm curious, like, what did you learn about, your, I guess, realizations and your ahas or breakthroughs, whatever you want to call it, through this? Like, what really jumped out at you?
Um, well, the distinctions around my ability to listen, and that the lines mean that I listen for the things between what's being said, and that is spot on. The size of the lips, that was like mind blowing. And that hiding, that being reserved, or being holding my passions back. And people say that I'm a very passionate person, but as you shared, there's so much more passion inside of me that is just waiting to get out. It was that was an awakening and freeing, because it's like, yes, I do have so much more to present. Why am I holding it back? And I don't even realize that I'm holding it back, because I think I'm really putting it out there. But here, it's just like when I'm looking at the body and I'm calling distinctions and details. I'm looking at the way that the toes are aligned. I'm looking at the way that the gap is between the big toe and the next toe, and how one foot is more pressure. You're looking at the face, and we did just the face analysis. You're looking at how my lips are shaped, and how my eyebrows are telling a story that I don't even know, I don't even realize. And it just proves once again that you can look in the mirror a million times and not see the person that's there. You're seeing what you're looking for. Do I have another gray hair? And at this point, I quit counting them. Um, but it's we're not seeing what we're presenting. And what you did was you opened that door up and you allowed me to go, okay, here is a non-judgmental way to see how you present yourself internally, and then how you present yourself, what you think externally. And there is a disconnect, a conflict.
Yeah, thank you. It's like, yeah, let's dive into a little bit more because I know, like, we're speaking about all these different spaces on our face. It's like, what does that mean? And I know that for one of the things for you, Stanley, was the Bell's palsy, right? Like,
Yeah.
and give us a little bit of background about that for yourself, how that showed up for you, perhaps, and yeah, how long it's been there.
Well, in let's see, 2002, 2 years after we moved into this home that I built, the sump pump quit and the basement flooded. And I walked downstairs and there's water. And so I was up for 40 hours sucking water up out of the floor to
Mm.
get this out, because my insurance agent failed to put the policy rider on. And she said, if you say you got your sump pump got hit by lightning, we'll cover it. I said, no, you were supposed to put the policy on. So here I am sucking water out, and it's
Hmm.
cool. And cold air, what they say Bell's palsy is caused by, is nerve damage in the inner ear. And so there was fans blowing, and I'm sucking water out of the basement. And then, being overworked, it broke down my immune system. Well, then I got this droop. And what it did was it caused this damage on this side of my face. And it um, caused a different of muscle reaction. And that's how the Bell's palsy, that's what was attributed to it. So that
Yeah.
this scar has always been a very subconscious, like conscious, subconscious. I'm very conscious about it.
Yeah. And one of the things I do is right in the beginning, I sort of ask you what jumps out at you about your
Yeah.
own face, because often these reactions to our face, what we like and don't like, highlight these deeper places within ourselves. And so this is, one of the reasons I wanted to highlight the Bell's palsy, so to speak, is because looking at it, we have a story often around why it came to be. And psychosomatically, we're really looking at what's happening at an emotional level a lot of the times, because
Hmm.
that's what gets held in our body and therefore in our face and body, and showing up in this way. And so the psychosomatic meaning behind Bell's palsy has a lot to do with this suppressing of anger and controlling the emotions. And so when you speak about the story, there was definitely, anger and trigger with them not adding that onto the contract. And we
Right.
can say that stimulated it. But oftentimes it's actually things that was pent up from over time. And that was the trigger that sort of triggered it in the body, so to speak.
Sure.
Um, and as you know, I know that in our sessions, Stanley, is that there were places within you that, um, like there was in your upbringing, there was a lot of places that you were that protector. You expressed that you were very intense and needing to protect your mother from who she was with. There was a lot of that history of that, so to speak. Would Is that what you would agree with? Does that align to your session and what's coming up with the Bell's palsy?
Yeah, and when I attributed to what it was the cause, okay, so the tipping point was like the coffee mug that you've picked up 100 times, and the one day you pick it up, the handle breaks. It didn't just break; it was something that took place over a period of time, a fraction, and then that fraction grew larger, and then one day it just gave way. And what I'm understanding is that's what this is showing up as. And so there were a lot of those experiences where I took defense for people, and I became a protector. I stood in the way of being marginalized, and I didn't want people to feel the way that I felt in certain circumstances. So I can see how that just compiled and eventually just gave way, and this is how it gave way.
Yeah, and because, being that I have nursing as a background, I know that sometimes Bell palsy actually heals in some people and sometimes it doesn't. And
Right.
there's, various reasons. And often what I know is that when it hasn't been healed, that the body's is holding that and it's actually communicating it in this way, right? And so, and it's interesting, right? I mean, that's one aspect, right? But when we're talking about, specifics around your nose and how part of it is pulled back, it's like that tendency to hold back our anger, so to speak. And so there was like more than one place that was spelling it out for me, so to speak.
Hmm.
And that's one of the ways that showed up. And Stanley, like one of the other things that was talking about your place of grounding and belonging. And what you spoke about was, am I wanted?
Hmm.
Right? Can I have success? Can I be loved?
Yeah. Yeah. So the idea behind it's a primal question that I have: Am I wanted? And the thing about our questions that we ask that are the underlying root or the underlying element behind us, our personality or our whatever our proclivities are, is that we're looking to get a yes. If we don't get a yes and we get a no or a maybe, we're looking to get it validated. And we do what we have to get it validated, to get that yes, not a no or not a maybe. We want a yes. And so earning the right or earning someone's love or earning the validation from somebody else has been, am I enough? Am I wanted? Am I wanted for who I am, not for what I have? And I can remember early on in my career, the common question when I worked at Boeing was, what kind of car do you drive? And what kind of house do you live in? And it's like, wait a minute, do you even get to know who I am before you get to know what kind of car I drive and what kind of house I live in? And it was when those were the questions, you knew you were talking to a gold digger. And so it was, I wanted to be wanted for who I was and not just for what I could give, but for who I was. And so that's been the underlying question. And then you validate that as you get older and until you understand what your primal question is, you're constantly in this battle. And this is what this face analysis has shown. It just opened up that permission to look inside myself and go, what is the underlying causes? What is the underlying supporting of that am I wanted question? And how is it showing up when it doesn't happen? And like you said, the difference in my facial features, and when you brought those two sides together, and I'm sure we'll get into that, but it revealed, and it's in revealing what is really there that gives you the power to be. I'm looking for the word. Um,
To be maybe present to it, even to
yeah.
like self-recognize almost.
Yes.
Because it's not that some parts of the face analysis is not that places that we know, but often it's from a more intellectual place. And what was being highlighted, for Stanley was that there's this, his physical zone, the bottom half of his face was, the largest part. It's a lot of his hands-on needing to get things done. Energy was there. Yet the bumpiness on the lines and just breaking up of the lines and these different areas and on the chin, it was really highlighting where this place, like, do I belong? You know,
Mhm.
am I loved? If can I be successful and loved? And a lot of these pieces actually point to, yeah, that deeper place of emotion within ourselves, to be able to hold our emotions in our body, because that's what creates the internal safety to really accept that within ourselves. It's not something that happens up here. And so, Stanley, when we're walking you through, what was showing up in your face, like especially when we came to the pieces of the inner and outer world, I'm not sure. Do you remember what was your experience of that part?
Yeah, I want to say it was on the left side of the face when you brought both sides. The left side is the inner world, and the right side is the outer world. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So when I look at the outer world, I'm confident, I'm strong, I know what I want, and I go for it. But on the inner, when you brought both sides of that together to show what's actually happening on the inside and why I'm putting that presentation, what I'm displaying to the world is different than what's happening inside. And I want to say that it's because I'm trying to validate, get that yes on the external for the no that's happening on the internal. And there's a constant battle. And when I can, when I had that availability, then it was like, okay, um, and there it is.
Yeah, Stanley. And very much like what you just shared, right? Like, you do want to make that difference. You want something, you'll go get it. Like, we're all doing our best with what we know,
Right.
right? And yet, well, when we come face to face with it, like, even if a part of us knew that, oh yeah, well, yeah, I know I said I'm gonna go do that, take care of myself, or yeah, I knew I was gonna go, raise my prices. I know I needed to change that team member, whatever it is, right? Those are all places that the reason we're not making those changes in our lives has a lot to do with how we relate to ourselves, and often at an emotional place, right? And
Hmm.
so, very much, Stanley, when you saw your right side of your faces together, the public face, right? You're like, I like this part of me,
Right.
which is beautiful, which is, that's great, and yet when you saw the two left sides together, it's like you made the comment that this person feels sad.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, that was a pill to swallow, but it's real. And it's what we present to the world and what is happening. It helps appreciate what the people that I work with go through as well. The more I can appreciate what I'm going through, the more that I can appreciate what other people are going through. And this also comes back to the part of my face where I want to say it's the cheekbones, my empathy towards other people. And I am definitely an empath. This is where I became that protector. You know, um, I gave what I didn't have, and I didn't come with a manual. So I didn't have I didn't have AI when I was growing up to give me a playbook to help me navigate. It was navigating through uncharted waters, no benchmark. I grew up without my dad. I met him when I was 18. So there was a lot of things that were building and compiling and that made me the person that I became. But all of that trauma, even though I didn't express it, and most people wouldn't have seen that, but when you're trained, now the ability to see it is the ability to unlock the door and release the person that's inside and say, hey, you're free to do what you want to do, what you're created to do.
Yeah, it's entirely true, right? It's like until it comes to the surface, like not from an intellectual level, but that we could actually feel that compassion for ourselves. Like, our tendency is to like stay positive and want to like have all this like love and compassion, and I want to give people what I didn't get. Often do we do
Right,
that to our kids, but often our clients in many ways turn into our kids in many ways, right? And yet there's still like I keep this keeps coming back to me, like, can I have success and be loved? Like,
right,
and in reality we can have both, but at a deeper level, at an emotional level, that inner child, as I call it, is often doesn't really know that, and often it's going deeper into being holding space for that part of ourselves to
mhm,
really open up to that freedom. And so, and for you, Stanley, I feel that when you saw this other side of yourself, like, I mean, it's a bit of a shocking and jarring experience. I think you could agree, right,
yeah,
Stanley? But it's like and I know that, through our discussion and your analysis, like, you set a high standard for who you're willing to let in emotionally. And I hope, I really hope this process, Stanley, has, yeah, really opened the door to give yourself permission that, to, I don't know, lower that standard for yourself to let yourself in. And, I truly, this is what I want to guide people back to the truth, and to, you do have so much more passion. You do have like so much more gifts, and you're doing amazing already, and there's so much more love to open up here. And I've seen it where the changes will happen in the face as we're coming back to ourselves in this way. um yeah, anyway, this is why I'm passionate about what I do, of course, Stanley. And I'm curious, as this has settled over time and maybe hearing it again in a different way now. Just
Yeah,
really,
it's giving that permission, like you said. It is giving that permission, and when it's revealed, that's where the key just unlocks the door. And one of the things that I have worked with and focused on with other clients is that understanding the archetypes. So, and I shared this in our call, was that it was told to me once that I'm a great king and a great warrior, but I've locked up the magician and the lover. And because I know how to fight and I know how to rule, it's I just need to put my armor down and allow the magician to let the lover out of the cage and laugh more and love like it is. I don't know. It's easy to love those that and you can say it this way. It's easy to love those that don't know any better. Like my granddaughters, they just love, okay? They have fun. And that's why I enjoy them so much.
yeah.
And but it's my own self-judgment that is not allowing that love to be experienced on another level, because I've added these things up, and I've added up where that love was conditional, and that it was, am I enough? Am I wanted? And then giving it answers of how the answer was actually no rather than yes. So
Yeah, yeah, and it's kids are beautiful because they exude that innocence that is
yeah,
within us. I believe that that's at some level underneath that's really inspiring us. Like, wow, that's who I really can hear.
yeah.
And we can see, and I know you said this was affecting you in different ways, and receiving that. And I think what came up was in relationship, so to speak, right? And we know that left side of our face is this very emotional side, is that yin, and often how we relate to feminine energy, right? And so we can see how that plays out in our relationship, is that when we're more connected to this side of ourselves, we're more able to connect to the feminine energy
Mhm.
in our lives, whether that's in the relationship with connection to grandkids, whether male or female. It makes a huge difference. And so there's so much more opportunity for love that's being
Exactly.
held here. And so that's the beauty of it. I just really want to open up to, I talk a lot about this authenticity, authentic leaders rising. And I believe that there is this deeper authenticity. And I know this is value for you, Stanley. And so, yeah, I'm so grateful to have held the space for you. Um, and I know it's like you talked about the self judgment piece, right? And how that highlighted in the corner of your eyes, so to speak, right? And also how it's showing up in the nurturing. I know
Mhm.
that was something that jumped out for you. Would you mind speaking about that a little bit?
Yeah. So growing up, the nurturing wasn't really there. I mean, my mom did the best that she could. She was a foreign woman raising American children, and where she grew up, children were seen and not heard.
Mm,
And I have ADD; it's my superpower, and I have an abundance of energy. And I don't think my mom ever saw that. She was never around that, so she didn't know how to handle
mhm.
that type of a child. And um, so as I appreciate that care, even as an early child, my mom got remarried. I want to say I was probably 5, and I never called anybody dad. Nobody. And I remember saying at 5 years old, "You're not my dad. I'm not going to call you dad. I'm gonna call you Tracy. That's your name." At 5 years old, and the idea behind that was that I had an identity and I wasn't going to let anybody take it away. And I was very aware, even at an early age. But I watched my mom be abused physically and mentally
Mm,
through her second and third husband. And it was, I never wanted that to happen.
yeah.
And so that's where I became that protector. And I sacrificed my childhood to make up that difference. And I remember at 13 years old, I I was watching a fight take place. I went upstairs and got my baseball bat and I said, I'm going to count to three and I'm going to bust your head open if you don't get off of her. And I counted and he got up before I got to three. Now, a 13-year-old should not ever have to go through that. But what
Yes.
it made me was it made me become a protector. And um, in that, it has served me positively, but it's also served to restrict me from becoming, my business is called Life Without Limits for a reason. And it's because I want to help others experience a life without limits that where I had limitations. So that's why I gravitated and 360, it's all around. It's our mind, our body, our health, our spirit, everything. 360. We're one being and you can't separate. And I compartmentalized. And what you helped me to do was also uncompartmentalize. And that was actually the word that I'm looking for, is to uncompartmentalize those pieces that make up this whole person, the puzzle.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, like I just can't help smiling just seeing like, like all these things that happen to us make up who we are. And,
Right.
you've birthed this beautiful business and really sharing your heart and things like that. And it's like, yeah, it's like opening up the box we put our inner self in to some extent. And
Right.
we could look so put together on the outside. And this is my thing is that, one of the main reasons I named this podcast Authentic Leaders Rising, because, all of us have a deeper truth within ourselves. And when we allow ourselves to rise, we could be without limits, and
Right.
what you're putting out into the world. And, and so, yeah, like, yeah, some reason this keeps coming up for me, this success piece and being loved, like, like needing to protect and, you know, creating success. Like you have no issues getting out there and making that difference. And it's like that love piece. And when we allow ourselves to have both and not choose one or the other, right?
Mhm.
This is when we're able to lovingly and powerfully, step into the full essence of who we are, to really, put out more of who we are and to create the impact that we know we're here to create at some deeper soul level. And this came up in your soul numbers and this intuition piece and this like lot of creativity coming in. And so it's just so beautiful how our face just brings it all together in this way. um, and I'm curious now, Stanley, like now that we're really processing through a lot of the things that came up, like I'm curious if any, yeah, new awareness is arising, or if there's something that you feel like you want to add to this conversation.
There's just so much to process. It is a continual process, and it's not a one and done.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that's the beauty of the work. It is we're a work in progress, and we're continually moving that marker and stretching that boundary and becoming the person that we were designed to be. And it's progress, it's not perfection. And I think you brought up a perfection aspect in where I look for details and how I strive for that perfection. And I've been saying for probably the last 6 or 7 years that perfection is probably the lowest standard. And the reason that it's the lowest standard is because it's unattainable. So if we say we want to be perfect, then we know we'll never make it. But if we say we want to be excellent, then it's achievable. And this is where that perfection, It's like, let's make it excellent. Let's make it outstanding. Let's make it phenomenal. But let's not make it perfect because there's nothing perfect. It's the
Mhm.
flaws that make us. Because if we were perfect, then if we found the perfect person, we would eliminate them because they wouldn't fit our standard. And so having a standard of excellence or outstanding or phenomenal, that is that's another one of those little cues that is a confirmation of what we did together.
Yeah, beautiful. And it's true. It's like perfectionism and excellence, right? Like when we allow that nurturance piece of love to really see things through a different lens, like, and
Right.
that was a big part of my journey, not knowing how to nurture myself. And I was a big giver, with nursing as a profession. So we have a lot of similarities in that sense. I had to really learn how to nurture myself. Well, what does that mean to be touched in that way? Or what does that mean to
Right.
ask for what I emotionally need? And I think that's where people forget is that, yeah, we could be really powerful asking for what we need in the physical world.
Hmm.
However, when we need to ask for what we need at an emotional level, it's very different. And so, yeah, invitation, just wanted to speak to that, for us, but also for the people listening to recognize there's differences there. And it even showed up for me this weekend as me and my husband celebrated our 22 year. And I realized that I needed something and I wasn't speaking up for it. And it was because it was from emotional place. And so, like you said, it's very much a journey. Um,
Yeah.
However, the cool thing about face analysis is that your face changes. And so that's kind of why I do the analysis at the beginning, working with someone also at the end so people can see how their face shifted, like through what they were actually, working on within themselves. So it's very beautiful like that. And so, Stanley, I'm curious, like from your lens, like what would a process, like who would benefit from a process like face analysis?
Well, I think anybody that wants to grow. And I say it that way because I believe that internally, I haven't met a person that really didn't want to grow. They put a facade on. If they don't want to grow, there's this identity, this protector, this warrior that they've built a wall around because they've been rejected or they've been judged. And I want to say that anybody can utilize this to grow themselves and to become aware of what they're presenting, not just to the world, but what they're really presenting to themselves. And it changes the language that we use in the morning when we wake up. Because if you wake up and say, oh, it's another Monday, it's because there's something inside of us that has not been addressed. And what you're able to do through this face analysis is go, okay, the way that you're thinking is probably hidden in your lips or it's hidden in your eyes and you're presenting something. So I have this innate ability to when I ask somebody how they're doing and they say good, I'm like, okay, we can't move on because good's not a good answer.
Mm,
It's a facade, and it's in also in the tonality of that good. And
mm,
it's not micro picking apart, but it's being in tune, because sometimes when somebody says it's good and in the tone that they're saying it in, I know that they want to explore. I know that they want to just express. And so having this ability and looking at, what can I do when I'm out? What can I do when I'm within? And it is smiling more. It's taking that element. When you put the two left sides together and I saw this sad person, it was like, okay, I have to laugh more. I have to do things that are going to create those muscles that counter the effects of the Bell's palsy that I got 30 or 25 years ago. And how can I have brighter eyes like I had when I was younger? And how can I even listen more attentively and also listen to my own words? So the face analysis gave me the access to that. So anybody that is really looking to grow, um, I want to know what would hold you back.
Yeah, thank you for saying that, Stanley, because I think that, yeah, you're right. Like a lot of us want to grow, want to be a better person. Like we want to be happy. And yet, we want to be happy and all these things, but a part of us is telling us we don't deserve it at some level
Right.
for various languages that we tell ourselves. And I know this is a very like literally in your face process. Like people don't want to be judged, especially they've been rejected all their life. And so I definitely set the intention to create a very compassionate, non-judgmental space. And Stanley, so I'm curious, like, could you speak to that? Like how I guide the process and walk someone through this. How did you experience that?
Well, number one, you're very gentle in that process, and you're very attentive to how the this is my perspective, how you were able to read that, and also you walked on that level of, hey, I haven't earned your trust yet, but I'm going to walk you through this process, and I'm going to show you that I'm not here. This is not judgmental, but I'm here. So I want you to trust that even though the ice gets thin, we can walk across this, and I'm going to go first. And that's what you did. And you gently guided, and you were able to share what those meanings were, and you dove deeper into it. And that's why, I'm excited to do this with you as a live testimony. And I said, even before the show started, just go all out, because there is power in vulnerability, something that we have not been taught. Vulnerability has not been taught. We're afraid of it. We're
Mhm.
afraid for the world to know the real us. Vulnerability and integrity with authenticity, those three elements together, you can be authentic and you can be just ugly as all get out. But when you're authentic with integrity and you allow vulnerability to be the supporting strength of that, this is where the process allows you to learn, and not just to learn for knowledge, but to learn for experience to create going forward. And this is where the imagination and creativity come together.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that, Stanley. And I just want to commend you on your vulnerability. I think that really speaks for a lot of males that maybe don't feel safe to speak about it. So I just want to really speak to that and honor you in that.
Thank you.
And yeah, yeah. And I want to say I definitely like very intentional with reading energy to see where is someone's trust and openness with me, and obviously how I say something, and perhaps me having walked on eggshells when in my past trauma. And that's one of the skill sets I bring to this, is that being able, very much like you, intuitively reading between the words. I'm
Mhm.
very much in my own ways applying our gifts from these things that happen to us. And I, yeah, just have like a way of just like reading that energy to deepen you or needing to come up. And that's really important. And because especially when we've been through some sort of trauma, we're always testing trust, whether we're conscious of it or
Right.
not. And so, yeah, I just wanted to speak to that and how there's all these gifts that come up in our ability to walk our gifts from the trauma and taking the diamonds from it, so to speak, and bringing it forward. And this just happens to be one of mine, and also one of Stanley's in his way. And so, yeah. And so, Stanley, if there's someone, on the offense with, wondering if they should take the steps to book something like this, like what would you say to them?
My question would be, what are you afraid of in your own self? What would you be afraid of being revealed? Because it's only when we reveal the dis-ease that we can cut it out.
Mm,
So if you only take out a portion, that which is surface, but the root is below the surface, which is what this does. It gets below the surface. Then how can you get rid of the thing that's causing the dis-ease in your body, in your relationships, in your thinking. And through this process, it's an opening, it's an eye-opening experience, a heart-opening experience. I want to say a soul connecting experience, because now, in the safety of being with Tammy, it is, hey, I shared my stuff, but she told me what she sees because of her training. So I'm not really hiding anything. I think I'm hiding it, but I'm not. So why not just get it out and live a life without limits?
Beautiful. Thank you. I love the way you painted that, Stanley. Yeah, I just want to thank you so much, Stanley, for yeah, just being dropping deep into this stuff and talking about things that, a lot of males and females don't necessarily want to dive into. And I think it's important because, we are the leaders, to really show up in the full transparency of who we are and to really put ourselves out there in this way. And so, thank you so much, Stanley. I just wanted to just check in if you have any last words you want to say. Otherwise, you feel complete. That's okay too.
I think we've covered a lot. And I just want to say, if you're listening, if you're watching, book a call and learn what you can learn about yourself and make you a better person for the world around you.
Beautiful. Thank you. Yeah. And if anyone wants to reach out to Stanley with him helping people with pain relief on a physical level, definitely reach out to him. I'll definitely put his, website contact in the show notes as well. If you resonate with Stanley, want to like ask him questions or learn more about what he does, I just want to put that out there as well. And so thank you again, Stanley. Thank you, the audience, for listening, to tuning into this. I look forward to walking you through the journey of your face. Thank you so much for listening to the Authentic Leaders Rising podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode, and leave us a review so others can find the life-changing content that we're sharing here. We are starting our movement on our way to number 1, and we need your help to get there. If you'd like to connect with other high-achieving entrepreneurs and leaders who are also on their authentic, energetic leadership journey, join our free Facebook community, Energetically Aligned Leaders. Go to pathtotheheart.com/links to join the Facebook group, book your personalized face analysis experience, or to access our resources.